What in the world is going on? 2025 is off to a roaring start and we've already got two different attacks in two different parts of the country, and apparently they're connected. Let's try and figure out what exactly is going on and try to make sense of it. Note that I'm recording this on January 2nd, so I am operating on incomplete information. The more information that we learn after this video is published, I'll gather and make a follow-up video if needed. Overall, we've got a couple of different attacks we need to talk about here. One is in New Orleans and one's in Las Vegas. I'm going to go off of what we know right now and not get into speculation too much until towards the end of this video whenever we're trying to tie the pieces together. The attack in New Orleans happened in the earlier part of New Year's Day whenever a white pickup truck slammed into a crowd on Bourbon Street in New Orleans, and the attacker quickly jumped out of the vehicle after hitting a barricade and opened fire on the crowd. He also exchanged fire with local police whenever he was killed on the scene. The pickup truck had an ISIS flag draped from the back, and it also may have had IEDs inside. Now, not long after the New Orleans attack happened, the same day, New Year's Day on Wednesday, a cyber truck pulled up into the valet parking at Trump Tower in Las Vegas and detonated fireworks and other explosive material in the back. Now, we already know who launched both attacks. In New Orleans, the attacker was Shamsuddin Jubbar, and in Las Vegas, the attacker, at least the vehicle, had been rented out to Matthew Allen Livelsberger. Shortly after these attacks, the connections between these two individuals became a little bit clearer, and this is where it gets interesting. Both Jubbar and Livelsberger were in the Army at one point or up until the time of the attack, with Jubbar being an IT specialist for the U.S. Army Reserve and Livelsberger being an active duty Green Beret and autonomous weapons specialist. Both of them rented their vehicles prior to the attack through a ride-sharing app called Turo. Both were also in Afghanistan around the same time, and both have served at different U.S. bases around the same time. They're also both U.S.-born citizens. And unfortunately, that's about all we know right now between the two. So we have two separate attacks in two different parts of the country, both timed pretty close together, and with both attackers having a very interesting level of similarities between the two of them. There's enough similarities to indicate that there might be connection, but there's still a lot of digging to be done. This, of course, has led to a lot of speculation about these attacks. Some have rightly called out the fact that a Green Beret should probably do a better job in making an IED, especially a vehicle-borne IED, than what Livelsberger did. After all, the fireworks didn't really do much, and the structure of the cyber truck did a good job in containing the explosion of the fireworks and really pushing that energy up and backward. Others have noted that while Jubbar had converted to Islam, he hadn't necessarily exhibited any behavior that indicated that he was interested in joining a terrorist organization like ISIS. Again, there's a lot of information that we really don't know about this, but I'm just making this video so you can have a quick shorthand update on what's going on between these two attacks and what the similarities are. Of course, it's hard not to look at both of these different attacks and assume that there's not some sort of a connection, especially after law enforcement stated that it was investigating whether or not there was a connection between these two attackers. However, it appears right now, and this is also according to law enforcement, that there is no connection between them, at least on the surface, and that at least the New Orleans attacker operated by himself. And that Jubbar in New Orleans acted 100% out of inspiration from ISIS. And that's very important, because not only does that indicate that there's not exactly an ISIS cell in New Orleans or in Louisiana that might have orchestrated that attack. At this point, it doesn't look like that's the case. It just looks like he felt inspired by ISIS and he just went out on his own and out of his own volition and did this attack by himself. So if there's any consolation with this attack happening, it's that it was just one person and it wasn't a cell that could be orchestrating more attacks. But what exactly happened in Vegas? Now, if I were to dip my own toes, and I'm going to do so gently, in the speculation pool, again, there's a lot of information that we don't really know. But looking more at the Las Vegas attack and looking more at the fact that it was a cyber truck at a Trump hotel and there was just fireworks being used, and the attacker, at least the suspect, was a Green Beret, my sense is that the goal wasn't necessarily to hurt anybody. It was more just to make a statement. I mean, the pictures themselves are pretty on the nose. It's a cyber truck at a Trump tower. A lot of folks have certainly been a little upset with Musk's involvement in the U.S. government, especially with his involvement in the Trump transition team. And so part of me wonders if that was part of the attacker's motive, was more to send a message, and that's why he used lower level explosive materials like fireworks and gasoline and didn't make a proper actual IED. Basically, his goal was just to make sure that nobody else got hurt, but the message was sent, and it was really more for the cameras. But again, that's just me speculating on this, so take that with a grain of salt. Really, that doesn't mean anything. What doesn't exactly make sense to me is the police reporting that Livelsberger, the driver of the vehicle, had sustained gunshot wounds prior to the explosion, or at least one gunshot wound. So perhaps he went into this attack planning on making a statement with his suicide. Of course, that has led to some speculation and concern that perhaps somebody else might be involved and Livelsberger might be a victim and not the perpetrator. There's plenty of conspiracy theories floating around about this right now, and I'm not going to add to any of this. I'm just going to kind of echo what I already said in my Jersey drone video, just to kind of take Occam's razor on this. And if you make an extraordinary claim, it must be backed by extraordinary evidence. So check out the tail end of that video if you want some more, just general theories that can kind of help with working and navigating with limited information where there's a lot of conspiracy theories. Of course, for all we know, maybe it's just that some guy went crazy, rented himself a Cybertruck, loaded it up with fireworks, decided to make a big show out of his own suicide and a New Year's Eve celebration or, suicide pact, and that's about all that is. What doesn't exactly help is the number of other events that have also happened since the new year. For instance, there was the shooting at a club in New York City that appears to be gang-related, a plane crash in Southern California, a truck with bombs discovered in South Carolina, and a few other issues that have popped up. People have their antennas up, especially after the Jersey drone story and other things going on with the inauguration coming up. People are a little on edge and they're looking for things that are going wrong or that are happening out of their expectation of the norm. Bad things happen, and sometimes randomness is just what happens, and it's hard to put randomness together and make sense of it in your head. And sometimes there are things that are going on, and other times maybe it's just somebody losing their mind. Now, whether the Las Vegas attack was connected to the New Orleans attack or not is really something that investigators are going to have to continue to investigate, and we will learn about later in the future. If we learn anything interesting, I'll probably make a follow-up video to this. If you find it interesting enough that I should make a follow-up video, let me know in the comments. Like this if you found this helpful or interesting, and subscribe for more analysis not only on this, but also on other conflicts around the world. With all that, I hope you all have an excellent new year, and I'll see you all next week.